What's up, you guys? How you doing? 450 class at Budds Creek gave us almost a predictable outcome with Chase Sexton going 2-1 for the overall win. And I will say this, though. It was still a good race overall. I'm going to get into that. But first of all, guys, remember, subscribe if you think that I'm worth listening to, or if you just want to see some of my other videos, or if you think that I make some pretty valid points, which is really my only goal for this, for my platform anyway, just to make some valid points. So anyway, guys, I don't have the same kind of insight that Cooksey does, but you know what? He does himself. I do myself. I guess you could say I'm kind of like, I guess he kind of inspired me a little bit to do these kinds of videos. But anyway, guys, remember, subscribe. And let's get into Budds Creek for the 450 class. Here comes my recap, my banner. Chase Sexton wins again, and Eli Tomac blew his chance at 24 donations. Now, this stands as far as this part of my banner still stands in my viewpoint. I'm going to get into that a little bit in a little bit. But so, anyway, Chase Sexton goes 2-1 for the overall win. And I'll tell you this, Chase Sexton is starting to remind me a little bit of Chad Reed in a sense, in the fact that he didn't just give it up and just pack up and maybe head to the car or something like, or not head to the car, but, pack it in, just ride it out. Just let Hunter have the overall. No, he fought for it. And although he is still reliant on the front end, something tells me that Chase Sexton is starting to gel with that KTM finally. And this win streak is proof positive. Because earlier in Supercross, Chase Sexton did not really look like the Chase Sexton of old. The only good thing was, though, that he was not losing the front end as much as he was on that Honda, which led me to believe that maybe there's something on the Honda that wasn't suiting Chase Sexton to a T. And that was probably why he was losing the front end so much. He was kind of on that front end so much. And I can kind of relate a little bit because I ride on the front end. I ride kind of crouched and I still try to ride correctly myself. So, of course, having an outdated motorcycle does, impede your progress quite a bit. But still, anyway, Chase Sexton coming from behind to win that second moto certainly made a bold statement that he was not going to be denied for not only the overall win, but for this championship. And, of course, Budds Creek had the return of Eli Tomac. But before I get to that, I have one last thing to say about Chase Sexton. The way that he rode, he was not to be denied. And the way that I see that kind of intensity from Chase Sexton was the kind of intensity that I had expected going back to Anaheim 1. Okay? Now, some could argue that, it was early in the season and he's still trying to get the bike figured out. That's true. But after Chase Sexton won in that quagmire at San Francisco, I thought that was going to launch Chase Sexton's year and he was going to be getting wins left and right, but it just never panned out. And then he wins one. The only time he won a race was one of the Triple Crown races. And then Eli Tomac wins a Triple Crown race at Anaheim 2 as well. And that got me to believe that that sooner or later, things are going to click for Chase Sexton, and he was going to make a run for the title. Unfortunately, it didn't work out, and Jet Lawrence ended up winning that Supercross title. And then the unthinkable happens, and Eli Tomac sitting out the final round due to his thumb injury, and Cooper Webb sat out the final couple of races because of a thumb injury of his own. Now, with Eli Tomac coming back to be considered for the 24 Nations. I got to say, though, even though there's only one race left, Eli Tomac likely blew his one and only chance of even being considered. And I still stand, and when I said this earlier, this still stands. But the way that Eli Tomac has been riding this year has certainly not been the same Eli Tomac we were seeing last year before that Achilles injury came up in Denver. Because it looked to me like Eli Tomac came into the year pretty much unprepared, kind of behind the eight ball, so to speak, and he never really got things going. Now, we had back-to-back mud races. Yeah, that may have played some factors. But the way that Tomac was riding, I did not see that same kind of intensity or that kind of beast mode thing that Eli is really famous for. And that led me to believe that Eli Tomac was pretty much washed up and he was just going to ride out the year and possibly just go Supercross only in an attempt to extend his career. Because last year, Tomac was Supercross only, and then he decided to commit to all 3 seasons. Then that Achilles injury came up, and that canceled those plans. Now, obviously, Budds Creek is a tough track to pass on, and I'll give them. And if anybody tells me that, I'll give them that. But Eli did not do himself any favors with that bad start in Moto 2. He needed to put in a good performance, and he sure as hell did not. And of course, the only way that you could pass a guy is if you got creative. Now, obviously, of course, some could argue that, it's Tomac's first race back, kind of give him some time. I'm sorry, but the fact that Tomac came back so late in the year, or chose to come back so late in the year, no. I don't care how long Eli Tomac sits out. He did not prove that he's the same Eli Tomac we saw in 2023. And I'll tell you this, Tomac has been kind of riding like that all year long. You always look for those beast mode rides, and he never puts them in. The only time he probably did was Dallas. And even then, I was not convinced because he had to back it up. Did he back it up? No, he did not. Okay? So don't be telling me that beast mode was back. Okay? I might spot him one race, but if you do it back to back, then I'm convinced. Okay? It takes a lot more than just one time to convince me, unless you do it in a manner that just couldn't be overlooked. Because the way that Tomac was riding all year long was proof positive that I would certainly have not considered him at all from the get-go for the 24 Nations team. Okay? So, what leads me to believe is that KTM could be sending Sexton and Plessinger. And Plessinger really wants to go. I say give him the spot. Okay? Chase Sexton, I say give him the spot. If Justin Cooper wants to ride a 450, I might be willing to give him that spot too. So anyway, and speaking of Justin Cooper, I have to say, though, when I saw the first moto, of course, Hunter Lawrence led coast to coast. But when I saw Justin Cooper come up and try to pass Hunter Lawrence right away, he pretty much did something that Jimmy Button would have done during his racing career. And you know, the way that Jay Coop rides, he's really aggressive, but more often than not, he ends up crashing or doing something really dumb. And unfortunately, in the case at Budds Creek, it was a crash, which leads me to believe that guy is Jimmy Button written all over him. That's my take on it. But Jay Coop, he doesn't cheat you on effort, just like RJ Hampshire in the 250s. But still, Jay Coop put in a great ride for the day. And I would certainly consider him. And if RJ Hampshire wants to ride a 450 for the Nations, maybe start his 450 career early, like how Ryan Dungey did in 2009 with the 09 donations in Italy, I could probably live with that. Hampshire showed some promise at Daytona, especially when he won one of the heat races. And that leads me to believe that Hampshire will have a good career in the 450s. So I say my money is going to be on Sexton, Plessinger, and Hayden Deegan as Team USA. I might do a separate video on that later. But anyway, as far as this class goes, Chase Sexton falling in the first moto, okay, it happens. I mean, at least it was kind of like one of those kind of soft falls, and not the kind of falls that really just make you cringe. Because Sexton has taken quite a bit of hits to his noggin, almost like James Stewart. Because Sexton, to me, is a mix of James Stewart and Chad Reed, in the forms of that Chad Reed just wasn't going to be denied, and he wasn't going to let a race get away from him. So anyway, I would consider Chase Sexton and Aaron Plessinger for the 450 rides, but I would put Justin Cooper and RJ Hampshire on the consideration list. Everybody else, I don't know. I don't think they've really proven themselves. But especially Eli Tomac, because really, for Eli Tomac to even to be on my radar, he probably would have had to win at least one of those motos for me to even think it. And he didn't do that. Okay? So, obviously, there is Ironman. And, of course, Tomac could possibly have another week on the bike. I'm not sure how long that Tomac was riding before Budds Creek, or if Budds Creek was the first time he rode, period, as in not getting any seat time on the bike during the week. But still, anyway, Eli, I'm sorry, but I would not consider you for the donations at all, especially if Tomac wanted to go. But the way that Tomac was riding in 2022 was proof positive in my view, because he was really gelling with that Yamaha, and he knew how to keep it upright, unlike Chase Sexton. But I wouldn't be I definitely wouldn't mind it if Justin Cooper went, if Justin Cooper raised his hand, or if RJ Hampshire raises his hand, or even someone else like Jason Anderson, or perhaps maybe even, I don't know, maybe even Justin Barsha if he heals up, because Barsha's a guy who doesn't cheat you on effort at all. But I think right now it's really a crapshoot, because I think Sexton's going to get one spot. If Plessinger doesn't get it, I think that'll be a heartbreak story. And I think the 250 rider is going to be either Hayden Deegan, but I wouldn't mind Chance Hymas either. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. That's all for today. And remember, subscribe, and I'll see you all for the Ironman finale. One last race to go, people. So thanks, guys. Subscribe, and I'll see you all later.